My guest at the interview bar tonight spent 5 years as an attorney in the voting section of the United States Department of Justice, a big building filled with lawyers in Washington, D.C. And according to his book, it's also filled with a bunch of BS. He's written Injustice, Exposing the Racial Agenda of the Obama Justice Department, and he drinks rum and Coke. Please welcome Christian Adams.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right, so what is the voting section of the DOJ?
Voting section is the unit of justice that regulates federal election law. It is the unit that this week, as a matter of fact, objected to Texas photo ID. They said you can't do this. They have an enormous amount of power over our election systems, dead people on the voter rolls, redistricting, every facet of American elections.
All right, so you were there for 5 years. What did you find to be wrong?
Well, the worst thing that's happening, and I write about this in the book, is there is an unequal application of voting laws. I brought the new Black Panther case, the case where these men are stalking the polls with weapons in Philadelphia, shouting racial slurs.
This was it was on YouTube and it was covered a lot.
A lot.
And it was the two guys in their outfits, kind of paramilitary garb.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're waving a baton and just shouting at people.
Yeah, you're about to be ruled by the black man cracker,
Right.
friendly greetings at the polling place.
Okay.
And we brought a case during the Bush administration for voter intimidation. After the inauguration, even though the Panthers never answered, the case was dismissed. The political appointees in the Obama administration didn't want anything to do with the case. It's just one example of many of sort of this corrupted racial view driving Justice Department policy.
And you were at the DOJ at that time?
Both during the Bush and Obama administration.
And how did you react to that?
Well, obviously we were very upset. I mean, you know, the law is meant to treat everybody equally. You're supposed to be equal in the eyes of the law. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, if you're a white or black wrongdoer or a white or black victim. It shouldn't matter. But unfortunately, in this Justice Department, it does. One
of the things I saw in the book that kind of was disconcerting to me was pictures of people's offices. And these are people tasked in the voting section with overseeing elections, and they had Obama posters on the wall, which to me was a little weird. I mean, I expect people will have their biases and things like that, but to kind of blatantly advertise it, a little strange.
Oh, it's worse than strange. I mean, these are the people regulating elections this coming year, and they have giant Obama posters hanging on their walls after they were told to take them down, after they were told this breaks the law. Doesn't seem to matter sometimes.
Do you think this is a deliberate attempt on behalf of, I guess, Attorney General Eric Holder to kind of maybe stack the deck in his favor, or do you think he has an agenda, I guess?
Well, there's no question about that. I mean, you could look at other things I write about in the book besides the Black Panthers. New York City firefighters, for example. The Justice Department, even though Supreme Court says exactly to the contrary, the Justice Department is forcing the Fire Department of New York to hire firefighters who actually flunk the entrance exams, simply because of their race. And so this is a pattern over and over again. There's more examples in the book. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Ike Brown was one of those?
Yeah.
Tell me about Ike Brown.
Ike Brown is this guy in Mississippi who was engaged in blatant voter fraud. You know, canceling valid ballots, cranking illegal ballots through the voting machine. It was all racially motivated. And when the Bush Justice Department brought this case, it's important for people to know that there are people in the voting section who didn't want to bring this case because the wrongdoer was black. Look, equal enforcement of the law is something that we fought the bloodiest war in this country's history over. The idea that all men are created equal, that this divine right of individual dignity should govern how the law treats you. And if somebody thinks that's small potatoes when that principle fails, that's their problem, not mine.
Is this something that changes as the administration changes?
Look, the Clinton Justice Department was fined $4 million in sanctions for bringing bad voting and civil rights cases. I write about the details in the book. The Bush Justice Department was fined $0. So there's a different philosophy. One side wants to push the law beyond the bounds that courts have set for ideological principles. The Republicans, when they're in charge, want to sort of restrain themselves to what the law allows them to do.
Now, you say in the book that you allege that Holder is specifically hiring people left-leaning who have advocated for civil rights. Is that a bad thing?
Well, no. In the book, I say he's hired people who have taken on radical causes. Some of these are not civil rights causes. Okay. Every single one of the people, the new attorneys that Eric Holder has hired into this division, is an outright leftist or radical.
How can an activist / partisan DOJ like this affect the upcoming elections?
Oh, good gracious. There's so many ways. Let me give you just one. Motor voter. You ever hear of that? That's the, you go in, you get your DMV. Okay. Motor voter makes it easy to register to vote, but it also requires states to clean up the voter rolls. There's another part of motor voter that forces them to take dead people off the rolls. Felons, people who have moved away. This Justice Department is ideologically opposed to enforcing the list maintenance provision, the part that takes, dead people off the rolls. They gathered the entire voting section together and said, we're not going to enforce this part of the law. So going into the 2012 election, we have places all over the country with more people on the voter rolls than are eligible to vote.
Because they're either not alive or not
moved
legal,
away.
Or, okay.
Yeah, it's dangerous. And this Justice Department won't do anything about it.
Do dead people tend to vote on the left side of the political spectrum?
Well, it's hard to poll in hell and heaven. But that being said, you have some convictions around the country. You have people who have voted twice, like Terrell Campbell. Terrell Campbell voted in both Illinois and Missouri in the 2008 presidential election and said he was an Obama supporter. I don't know if more people who break the law are Democrat versus Republican, but you certainly see when the Democrats are most interested in preventing election integrity measures, it does give you some pause as to who's really behind it.
We fix this how? Just by putting in a new attorney general who has a better appreciation for what you say is equal application of the law?
That's a start, but we face a big giant national tar pit on this. I mean, people are stuck in their ways. It's tough to get out of this mess. How you get out of it is going to take the work of citizens, local election officials who clean up their rolls, state officials who don't tolerate justice being overbearing like they just did to Texas this week with voter ID, and a new federal government. That's really the only way out.
How many times do you plan on voting this November?
At least once.
Okay, good for you.
Yeah.
All right, that concludes this week's BS of A with your host, me. My guest was Christian Adams, author of Injustice. Thank you for joining us. There's a new BS of A next week, and until then, you can look us up on Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest. Are we on Pinterest? Nope, not on Pinterest. It's not Pinteresting. See you next week, and please continue to not touch things that are very hot. I'm Brian Sack. Good night.
Cheers.